what the EMB audio is, how it operates, how it works, and how it's actually a little bit different from the Dunlop pedals and the Dunlop rack units. Most of us are pretty familiar with the way that Dunlop does their stuff, and similar companies, similar guys that have mods and whatnot. So some of those ideas sort of translate over to the EMB, some of them don't. Some of it with the EMB is a lot more flexible, even though it doesn't seem like it has a lot more options and features compared to other units. So let's just take a look real quick. The first one is the Dunlop 2SR. That's the current one that Dunlop offers, the rack-mounted unit. This one's the 1SR, which is their older one. Both of these are actually the same basic 95 crybaby circuit. Only differences are really this one has a more modern inductor in it. It has more of a boost, has a better EQ, goes lower and higher than the 1SR does, and it has a Q control on a knob. So minimum, maximum, basically kind of like going from your typical 33K to 100K type of thing. The 1SR does not have that. Both of them will let you go high range, like a normal crybaby, to a lower, more bassy type of sound. Now the thing about that is, we all know, you change the range, you're basically, you have this right here, you have this much to work with. And then when you go down, you switch your range lower, it's the same amount, it's just a different lower area that you have to work with. Now with the EMBs, you have three controls. The first one is going to be low, high, and depth. Now it's pretty self-explanatory, but the way they operate might take a little bit getting used to. Your low control basically is going to set the starting point for the low end of your pedal, like this. So if you want this low side right here to have a little bit more high end in it, not too bassy, what you're going to do is you're going to bring this up. Same thing is true once after you do the low, you want to set your high. And the high, of course, is going to be with the pedal all the way down. So what you do, if this were all the way off, if you could hear this, there would be no sweep. You would hear nothing right here. It's not going to work if you don't set your high control. So what you do is you dial in the highs that you want, and with the pedal, it's going to sweep between this low setting and that high setting. And that's what gives you the real unique EMB tone. Normally when I set mine up, it's usually about something like that for the kind of Kirk Hammett / wah tone that we all kind of like. Now the depth control is very similar to the crybaby Q control. Set it at the minimum, it's going to be a very, very, very kind of subtle type of effect, almost off. Bring it all the way up, and it's going to get a lot more exaggerated, a lot stronger, more in your face type of a sound. So let's take a look at the EMB front panel. First up, it has input and output, into your guitar, out to your amp, effects processor, whatever you have. Low control, high control, depth, bypass. Bypass is actually going to work the same way as the actual switch in the pedal. So you can turn it on and off right here. LED indicator, of course the good old logo. Alright, let's take a look at the back now. Alrighty, here's the back of the Dunlops and the EMB. Pretty much, the Dunlops are similar. The 2SR has a built-in volume function, so this is all for your volume. This is your in and output, and these are your control pedals for the 2SR. Input output for your 1SR, control pedals for the 1SR. Now on the EMB, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. This is only a single pedal system, so of course there's only one pedal input. If this were multiple pedals, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many, there would be more of these guys and little switches where you can go and turn on the pedals on or off, and that corresponds to the front panel LED cable faults, like you can see on my other one that I used to own. But again, this one is pretty straightforward, simple little power switch, and you have rear input and output controls. So really the easiest way to connect it is, you just plug your guitar into the input and you go out of the wah, another cable. Now these old ones and the reissue prototype, they're still running on the microphone cables, XLR cable. So all you do is just take them, oh, wrong side. Take the cable and just plug it in. It locks in place like that. Do the same thing with your pedal. Has a XLR microphone connection. Other end goes in here. Hold on. There we go. So, real straightforward. Now, originally, when Matt built these, 20 years ago, the way that he essentially did it was whenever he received an order, whoever was buying it, whoever was buying one of these rack-mounted walls from him, sent him in the pedals that they wanted to use for controllers. So guys like, Kirk Hammond Slash, they had the Ernie Ball volume pedals sent in. A lot of the Japanese guys had these ones, the old Boss volume pedals, and that's what were used. Steve Vai's old one used just a regular old Dunlop Crybaby type of pedal. Now, something very important to note is regardless of the pedal used, it does get the same tone. So it's not going to be very drastic and different. You're still going to get that totally unique, huge, that just giant sweep that it has in tone. Personally, they all worked well. I liked them all. Whatever you guys want is, up to you. The new ones will come with a Dunlop style one, not this one, but similar to the ones that we posted photos of last week, the gray ones. If you do want something like a Boss or an Ernie Ball, it can be done, but you have to send it in to Matt, and he has to actually make the modifications for that in order for it to work. Alright guys, the next thing that I want to do is run through the controls and how they operate a little bit. So what I have right now is my Les Paul plugged in. I'm going to be using the neck pickup on it, and I'm just going to be hitting an open string and letting you hear how the controls react. Okay, I am using the Boss control pedal, which again, it's pretty much exactly the same as like the Ernie Ball. It just comes down to what you like in terms of feel. The low control is all the way off, and the highs are also all the way off. Depth is going to be right at noon, all the way up. So what I'm going to do is hit an A. Okay, I'm going to turn the pedal on. As you can see, while I sweep, nothing is happening. Reason for that is because all the controls are essentially at off right now. So what you want to do first is set your low control. I don't know if you can hear that, how well it comes across on this iPhone recording, but what it's basically doing is it's shifting that frequency, that low frequency, wherever you want it to sit down here in your low position on your pedal. So let me play it real quick and you can hopefully hear it. So that's adding more. All the way off. All the way up. Right about 10 o'clock. Okay, now let's move down to the full toe down position, the full treble position. Again, this is off, so I'm going to hit the G string. Nothing. So yeah, what you want to do is you need to set this, your high control. And you need to tell it basically where you want it to sit in the pedal sweep. So here's at about right straight up at noon, G string. This is all the way off. So nothing and no sweep. This is with the highs right about noon. It can go a little bit higher than that. Personally, I don't go a lot higher. And you can go a little bit lower. The sweet spot for this sort of seems to be right about 10 o'clock. Next up, we're going to look at the depth control. So again, the depth is basically like the Q. It's going to affect the overall, really the overall wah effect. So hopefully you can hear this. So that's with it up at noon, all the way on. Now this is with the depth all the way off. So you can see it, you can hear it. It becomes a little bit more shallow sounding. It's still there. It doesn't go completely away, but it's just a little more subtle. Usually, I like mine right about 12 o'clock, maybe a little bit past it, 1 o'clock maybe. One thing again to note: this is not a reissue. This is an old original one. Mine is a little bit different. The new ones, the reissue that we were testing last week, sounds even better. I prefer that. It's a monster of a sound. But essentially, that is how these guys operate. Low, high, depth. Set it to your liking, and you get the sound that you want. One thing to note, though, it is kind of sensitive to the amp that you're running it into. Clean, low gain, mid gain, high gain type stuff. You're definitely going to have to change your settings when you change a different amp.